I've never had to come out in the same shape or form or with the same amount of gravity as our LGBT folks here today. But I've had some kind of experience. Most times, it's been coming out as a liberal to my family, coming out as a Texan to people here in the Northeast, coming out as a Christian to UU circles, but never with the same level of seriousness. But I do find it interesting to think about what it means to be asked, who are you? And what it means to say, how do you identify? Which is what a lot of folks say in interfaith circles. What's your faith perspective, or how do you identify as a person of faith? And the first time it is kind of tense, but it does get easier as it becomes a ritual. And so when we talk about welcoming and belonging here this month, and what it means for us at Restoration to be a welcoming congregation, I would like us to think about what are the rituals that we have that make people feel welcome? And what are the rituals that we can keep doing and keep working on? So for me, it comes down to details. So I'm going to come out here for you as something you may not have known about me, is that I play rugby. And that may or may not be shocking to you, but it was kind of shocking to me to find out that I played rugby. It was something I've been thinking about for a long time, and I wanted to find a team, and finally got out of seminary. And I found a team here in Philadelphia called the Philadelphia Griffins. And they are part of the International Gay Rugby Coalition. So they're the open and inclusive rugby team here in Philadelphia. And I played all last year, and I don't know if anybody here knew it, because I was a little worried about what would happen if I got hurt on Saturday and showed up with a giant black eye on Sunday. I would have to tell the story. But I tell you this because learning how to play rugby for me was a real challenge. It's a much different sport from anything I've ever played. And whenever you're learning how to do anything new, you start with the very basics. When you're learning how to tie your shoe, you learn to cross the strings and then bring it under and then form the loop. And you build on those skills. And learning how to play rugby was very much like that, except that playing rugby is a much different endeavor than learning how to tie your shoe because it involves 14 other people all trying to tie the same shoe at the same time. And I found that it's such a team game and that the details are so important that you have to be where you're supposed to be at the time you're supposed to be there. You have to do what you're supposed to do repeatedly over and over and do it right every single time. You can't be too far ahead. You can't be too far behind. You can't be too far this way. You always have to be paying attention, and you always have to be thinking ahead to not just what is about to happen here, but what happens next. And it's the details that are important. And one of the things that I found really lovely about playing for the Griffins is that it's a great group of guys, and everyone's full of love and full of generosity. And that one of the things that you say when you play rugby is that the ball travels sideways and backwards, right? You can't throw it forward like in American football. So if the ball is to go sideways, you need to have someone there that you can pass to. And you're not just thinking about what's coming to you, you're thinking about what happens next. So you also have to have someone on the other side of you who will catch the ball after you get it. And the way that you let people know where you are and that you are available to help them is you call out, with you. With you. I'm with you. So you'll hear people on the rugby pitch screaming, with you, with you, with you. Right? And someone here will say, with you, and then you say, with you, and then someone here says, with you. And that's how you know that you belong, is that people say, I'm with you. What a great metaphor for what it is to be a community. The welcoming congregation renewal process that the UUA has updated in 2018. Steve told a little bit of the history. It started as a thought back in the 70s and became kind of something in the 80s and then really got going. So Restoration became a welcoming congregation in the 90s. And many congregations in the UUA did this. But after the initial wave, and LGBT folks became more accepted in general society and kind of wavered off. And so we didn't really know what it meant anymore to be a welcoming congregation, because you did it once, and kind of like we talked last week, you went to the LGBT welcoming spa, and you were good to go. So the welcoming renewal process has been done, where it happens every year now. And the intent was for it not to be an imposition on congregations. It was to be an opportunity for intentionality. So I have the 5 things that congregations do as part of the welcoming renewal process, the official recertification process. So we'll go through them very quickly. Number 1, become a welcoming congregation. Done. Boom. 1 down. We already did that. Sign up to become a welcoming congregation. We've already done that. Number 2, have 2 Sunday services a year that are designated welcoming services, where they center on LGBTQ issues. This is 1. We'll have another one, at least 1 more, some way throughout the year. That's step 2. Step 3, honor 6 days throughout the year with some kind of ritual. So there are various national holidays, there are various days of remembrance. There's the whole month of June, that's Pride Month, where we honor those days, those memories, with something as simple as the litany that we did today, with something in like a prayer, singing a song, holding a vigil, for 6 days throughout the year. Only 6 days. That's not very hard. Number 4, donate to an LGBTQ inclusive organization or project. Well, we do Change for Change every month. Justice Council does a great job of switching up what kinds of organizations get our funds. And I guarantee there will be some kind of LGBTQ-focused organization at some point throughout the year. And number 5, to do a UUA accredited or informed justice workshop or seminar. So if you've seen in your emails, in the e-newsletters, which I know that you are all reading from top to bottom, you'll see that we're trying to do a trans inclusion seminar and webinar sometime in January. This is one of those programs. So it's something that the congregation can participate in more as a whole rather than just as individuals. That helps us be educated, that helps us be more intentional about our welcoming processes. That's it. So when I read this, I was thinking, that's another thing that we have to be responsible for, another thing that I have to be responsible for. But when I looked at it, it's really not an imposition at all. It is simply just something that takes intention and consciousness. That I think we do this just by being who we are, but doing it intentionally and lifting it up and practicing the ritual over and over is going to make us a stronger community. So that's the how. Steve has spoken about the why, what it means to be welcomed as you are. Internalizing these things now, working on these things now. When things feel like we are welcoming, and we are. When things are going well, and they are. Practice these things now is important. So that later, if things aren't going so well, if we make a mistake, if we trip and fall, we will have the rituals and routines down so we know what to do. So when you're on the rugby pitch, if you don't practice during practice, when it comes to the game, if you don't know what you're doing, I can tell you it hurts to get tackled really hard when you do the wrong thing. So part of the welcoming renewal process is to help us practice these things now. Are there any questions about that process? The 5 steps that are actually only 4 because we're already a welcoming congregation? Okay, thank you. Then I don't have a whole lot more to say. I just want to lift up the words of some of my queer colleagues and some other queer writers who speak about welcoming and what are the little things that we can do? What are the details that matter in congregational life that help us become more welcoming? Because the big stuff is this renewal process. The big stuff is making grand proclamations. But it's the details. It's everyone saying, with you, with you, with you. Otto O'Connor, who Steve referenced, is a reverend. I believe he's in Massachusetts. And I kind of know him, but we met at GA again, and there was a seminar that was going on during ministry days. And I don't even remember what was being talked about, but we were breaking up into identity groups, which I did not realize because I had gone to the bathroom. So I came back in, and the talk was going on, and I just looked for a semi-open table. And I saw one, and Otto happened to be sitting there, and so I slunk down and I slid in next to him. I said, "Hey, how's it going?" And usually when you come into those tables, you are so good about saying, "Oh, welcome, yeah, come on, sit down. Here's what we're talking about, here's the papers." And Otto looked at me like, and I immediately knew something was wrong. I thought, "Oh no, what is happening?" And Otto looked at me, and then he looked at the thing in the center of the table that had a card on it, and it said, "Trans Ministers." And he just goes, and I go, "Oh, that's not me." And we talked about it afterwards, and it was totally fine. He's so gracious. And he said, "I didn't want to assume, but I was pretty sure." And for me, it is funny and it's hilarious, but it does make me think about, what is it like to come into a space where you're unsure and where people seem unsure about you? And how do we react? Do we react with grace, or do we react with assumption? And maybe this process is something where we can work that out. So I want to lift up just 2 things right now that I believe are details that I think we can start working on immediately, that I think will make us a more welcoming congregation. The first one is kind of the big grand scheme. I was at St. Paul's Episcopal on Chestnut Hill. They had a rummage sale. I was looking under sheets and blankets, and I found this, the equality flag. It's in a little bit of rough shape, but I think it's repairable. And then found this guy. Paid a grand total of $1 for both. So I'm not real concerned if we can't find a place for it or if we want to buy a new one. But I thought we might be able to do something with this. Posting it here in the sanctuary, posting it outside on our building. Something to think about. I believe that our Black Lives Matter poster, banner, helps Black folks, help people of color be a little less tentative about coming in here. I think no matter what, coming into a space where you don't know, where you see a lot of faces like mine, there's still tension. You don't know. Are these people accepting? Are these people welcoming? I think our Black Lives Matter sign goes a long way. The hope is that something like this might too. Secondly, we have name tags. Where did I put mine? We have name tags that I don't always do a good job of wearing mine because I work here. My name is on the door outside, is on the banner outside. But details. I wonder what it would be like for someone who is trans to walk in and see everyone with name tags that have their pronouns on them. And that was a stretch for me when I first heard about it, when my colleagues first started introducing themselves with their pronouns. I thought, clearly, right? I didn't want to assume, but I was pretty sure. And then I thought more about it, and I had people educate me, colleagues and allies educate me. And I realized that when I send emails to someone who has never met me, I just sign it McKinley and just assume. And it's not insignificant the amount of times that I have been replied back as Mrs., Miss, she, because McKinley is one of those names. So I was like, oh, that's actually really helpful if I put my pronouns in my email. That benefits me personally. So that made it a little easier. But then, learning about how it feels to be in community and what it means to say, I'm with you. So this is from Sinclair Sexsmith, a writer on Medium. And they write, using pronouns is awkward at first. It gets easier with practice and time. You'll get it. Keep at it. Practice saying and expressing your pronouns whenever you can. Practice asking, especially asking cisgender people, people who are the same gender as when they were born. Asking cisgender people can ask each other. The more that these people do it, the more of the burden it takes off of transgender and non-binary folks to do the education work themselves. And there's one more thing I want you to know. It feels so good when people get it right. It feels so good when people see me for who I am. It can make my whole day better when I hear someone refer to me with they, them pronouns. Honestly, I rarely hear it myself, because if I'm standing there, it's the least likely place for someone to refer to me as they, them. But sometimes it happens in an introduction or a story, and it still surprises me. I feel vulnerable and cared for and seen. Details matter. Thinking about what has come before and then what will come after. Who has come before and who will come after, I believe are important. So I would ask us to think about what are the details that we might focus on here. What are the little things that we can do? Maybe starting with name tags and pronouns. And going from there as part of the welcoming congregation renewal process. I challenge us to look at the details and practice and practice and practice and learn how to say, I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm with you. So that when folks come to be with us, may it be so. Amen.